So this is a video. It's called the Palestinian film that's also funny. Sometimes I take a little bit of criticism for like as much laughing and joking that I do. And I think that people don't always understand where my lane rests as far as like my content and what I'm trying to do for people in this situation is. And this video does a great job of this, of explaining that. And this is a video from 2009 by a director named Elia Suleiman. Elia Suleiman. And it's called The Time That Remains. It's about Palestinians living under Israeli occupation. This is 2009, so this is a while ago. And it's a comedy documentary. And I wanted you guys to watch this because sometimes I have a hard time explaining why it's important to keep a sense of humor during really fucking hard times. I also think, just so you guys know, that you should draw a line in the sand. And there is a point where I'm not fucking laughing anymore. You know what I'm saying? You touch my children. You harm my family. You harm my friends. You harm the people that I love. And you will be fucking around and finding out that day. So I want every person to understand when we're talking about this that it is important to laugh at the absurd, and it is important to be able to keep fighting with that humor. But at no point will I ever say that there will not be a point where we stop laughing. And at that point, motherfuckers better pay attention. This is like some Naked Gun shit.
It is a form of resistance to actually laugh, especially when you laugh in face of oppression and authority.
Because Donald Trump doesn't want you to laugh anymore. Oppressors want to take away from you your happiness and your hope. And that's why I actually thought, and I'm sure that this was lost on most people. Well, not lost on most people, lost on some people. But I actually thought Kamala Harris's campaign's idea with the idea of bringing back joy was really good. And I liked her pick of Tim Walz because I thought that he embodied kind of that, let's just fucking get back to having a good time and let's get back to just minding our own business mentality. But more than anything, this administration wants you to stop laughing. They want you to stop hoping. They want you to stop having, good times with your family and relationships that matter to you. They want you alone. They want you sad, and they want you apathetic and exhausted. And this is how we combat that. This is how we do it.
I first saw The Time That Remains when I was in film school back in 2009. And I remember being genuinely confused by what it was trying to do. On the one hand, it's a personal and tragic story about a Palestinian family living under Israeli rule. But instead of a realistic historical drama, we get a Wes Anderson-style comedy. The story itself is autobiographical and historically true, but the style makes it feel fictional, almost fantastical.
And there's people that would be very upset about that. There's people that would be like, this is not acceptable that you're trying to turn this into a humorous situation. And that would be completely missing the point of what this person is doing.
And there's a reason why director Elia Suleiman chose this style.
In ghettos, when we reach that despair, we turn this despair into humor for the sake of resisting finality.
Oppression results in despair and a loss of hope. And one way out of this despair is to transform these circumstances into humor. Tragedy becomes comedy. And this act, ironically, resists the very oppression that's causing the despair. It reclaims a sense of power and dignity. Instead of pitying these characters, we relate with them. For better or worse, a narrative structure that categorizes one side as a help.
The resistance waited until the lady fucking moved on with her stroller. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, and this is so right up my alley. You guys have no idea. watching movies, this is what I do. I just sit here and dissect things. Like that's why I'm doing what I do on YouTube. Is when I'm reading a book or I'm watching a movie or I'm listening to music, my brain is going a million miles an hour and it's always just like dissecting what I'm seeing. I'm not a person, I used to be, I'm not a person anymore that can just ride the ride and enjoy it. I have to think.
This victim and the other as an evil oppressor results in pity for the victims and hatred for the oppressors. There's an othering of both groups involved, a feeling that could never be me. I could never do something so horrible, or conversely, I could never be in such a powerless position. Suleiman instead creates a beautiful aesthetic and a relatable humor in the midst of tragedy. And this makes you accept that these people are a lot like me. That could be my family. And Suleiman has a name for this act of transforming a tragic situation. He calls it extending time vertically.
Can't help but bob your head to it.
The humor of a ghetto stems partially from the necessity to extend time and to gain time, often vertically. So if you know that you have a certain amount of time that you can sustain yourself in despair, whether it's a constant or whether it's before being taken to the gallows, one way to expand your life at this moment would be actually to poeticize. And there's a lot of poetry in the humor as well.
Oh, no. Oh shit, son! You know what I really like about that? Is that he uses the word ghetto. I've been criticized by people on the left even that I came in and been like, you're not supposed to say ghetto. And I'm like, motherfucker, that's what we called it. We got songs about it. In the ghetto. Like, that's where I grew up. Like, I think sometimes people just misunderstand things like that. Is that to us, to those that lived the life, who were there, it was the ghetto. It was the ghetto. It was the hood. Like, that's where we lived. And you don't need to be mad for me in that situation. I love that he chose to use that. And I'm sure he's not as aware of those criticisms as I am. But I love that's where he took that, because a lot of our humor comes from people that grew up in bad situations. A lot of our comedians have bad and fucked up pasts. And even Joe Rogan said the funniest people he knew, okay, grain of salt, but the funniest people he knew always had traumatized backgrounds, right? And some of the times that I've had a hard time existing on the left is with my sense of humor, because I tend to laugh at things that other people would think like, wow, like you're laughing at that. That's really not that great to be laughing at. Like, you know, what if that person got their feelings hurt by you? I'm like, you're thinking too much. You're thinking too much about like whether or not this person will ever see me or know that I've laughed at this. And I think that's the over analysis sometimes that gets done by certain people on the left side of the aisle. And I think that you have to learn to laugh, because if you can't learn to laugh at absurdity, if you can't learn to create positivity through humor, then like you said, you don't extend your life vertically. You don't have hope, and you don't think that you'll ever get out of where you're at.
I'll come back to this concept of extending time vertically, but first, let's get into the story and how this film is structured.
Yeah,
I was terrified that if I...
Miss Anonymous says, it sucks when you can't turn off your brain. I don't sleep very well. I was terrified of failing to the P word.
P word. P word is female genitalia.
Sorry.
It has 4 acts that take place during 4 time periods: 1948, 1970, 1980, and present day, which was 2009. Before the first act, we start with a prologue in the present day. A driver has just picked up a mysterious, silent passenger from the airport, and in the process of driving him to his destination, a storm breaks out and he becomes lost. He calls for help on the radio, but gets only silence in return. The state of being lost then seems to transition from a geographical uncertainty to an existential crisis, and he repeats over and over, "Where am I?"
Funny.
We later find out that the silent passenger in the back is the film's director, Elia Suleiman. He plays himself when the film is in the present day, and he never says a word. Or as the subtitle of the film says, he plays a present absentee. We're then taken back to 1948, the year Israel became a state. Here we meet the director's father, Fouad Suleiman, a resistance fighter on the day Nazareth unconditionally surrendered to the Israeli army. It's a day of defeat, or as the Israeli flyers ironically put it, a day of liberation. And ironic is the best word to describe the way that these events are framed. Israel really did take over on this day, and Elia's father really was a resistance fighter who was nearly killed. But everything about the way these events are presented give the impression that we're watching something constructed, something fictional. Nearly every shot has a planimetric composition. That is, the background is a flat plane, with actors either facing the camera or in profile, just like in a play. It's impossible to talk about this aesthetic without mentioning Wes Anderson. As another YouTuber, Thomas...
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, because weren't you guys just talking about Wes Anderson?
Flight, I think, successfully argues the purpose of this aesthetic, or at least its effect, is that the viewer feels the presence of the storyteller in the images. Each shot...
Yeah, I like what Mountain Bike just said. We also have to be able to laugh at ourselves. We know Felon 47 has never laughed at himself. Is that a narcissistic thing, or an egomaniac, or just a lunatic? I think you're right that it's narcissistic, because it's the insecurity that if you ever laugh at yourself, that people might join in. Like, that's what I think they think about. Like, I laugh at myself all the time. Like, I think it's fucking hilarious. One of the things that, like, I think made MAGA feel comfortable in my chat, which obviously over time I do think was maybe a mistake on my part, was that they would come in and they would, try to make fun of me, and they'd always have like the worst fucking, insults. They're not creative people. And I would just go, "Is that it? Come on, man, give me a better one. Come on. Like, and occasionally one of them would say something, and I'd be like, "That was actually pretty good. That one hurt a little bit, right deep down inside where I'm supposed to have a soul." And they're very much like, "Oh, okay, you can take a joke." And it's like, yeah, I can take a joke, but I can't take racism or homophobia. I can take a joke. You can call me gay, and I will smile at you, and I will say, "Gay for you." And I will ask you if you'd like to make out. And, I will make you feel incredibly uncomfortable because you're insecure that I'm inferring that you're gay, whereas I'm not insecure that you've inferred I am, because it doesn't reach down to any part of my body or my soul that says that I should be concerned about being thought of as gay. Like, if people think I'm gay, I'm okay with that. I really don't care. It doesn't fucking make me sad. But I know it did make them. And I do think that that's narcissism. I do think that people that are narcissistic are afraid that if they laugh, that you might join in, and then they'll go, "What the fuck are you laughing at?"
That feels meticulously crafted. While most directors are meticulous about framing, that meticulousness is meant to feel invisible. They want the viewers to forget they're watching a movie, not be reminded of it.
Yep.
But as we watch Fouad navigate the streets of Nazareth, get captured, betrayed, threatened, and nearly killed, it's impossible to forget that we're being told a story.
Killed?
But it is an enjoyable story,
that look
with
deadly.
a brave and handsome and completely romanticized hero. And of course, this hero is Suleiman's own father. Tragedy is reframed into comedy. Oppressors are made to look pathetic.
See, he knew my sense of humor. He's like, "Bro, all we have to do is show a butt right here, and this fucking ginger will laugh at that."
And the oppressed reclaim power and dignity. Because, as we all know...
Sarah, I love This Is Not Happening. I love those stories.
No, the power that resides within an individual, the virtues they possess, are infinitely more impressive to us than the abstract power of a state.
You know, I was about to say that this is actually an extremely good way to get your message across, and I thought about MAGA, and I was like, MAGA could literally watch this shit and never understand what the fuck it's about. They'd just be like, why am I watching this? Oh, they showed a butt. I guess that's why MAGA is like, you could come over and be on our side, because we'd all laugh at butts together. I think that's why they invited me to their cult. I had to turn them down. I had to decline that invitation. They almost got me.
So, واحد اثنين 10.
To cap off this day of defeat, the first act ends with Fouad being beaten and his limp body tossed over a ledge.
See, that's funny.
In 1948,
Sorry.
roughly 750,000 Palestinians were expelled from their homes and never allowed to return.
Jesus.
Many of these families moved to the West Bank or Gaza, where their descendants still live to this day, if they're still alive. Those who did try to return
Dude, that is so nuts.
still live to this day, if they're
That is so nuts. It's fucking
still
heartbreaking.
alive. Those who did try to return were known as present absentees. Because they were absent on a certain day, they were no longer allowed to live in their home, even if they were
What the fuck, man? See, this is the kind of shit. Like I said, I am no scholar. I have to resist giving an opinion on this shit. But what the fuck, dog?
forced to leave.
Like, the human side of you has to, whether you're not, I don't care what side of the conflict you're on. The human side of you has to look at shit like this and just be like, it's not right. Like, I know that there's people out there, you know, and I've made this argument to people before, like, you know, about certain people in these societies that are very anti-woman, very anti-homosexual. Like, you know, there's a lot of people that are like, but some of these people, you know, believe, or they'd say all these people believe that homosexuals should be, you know, put to death and women shouldn't be, you know, allowed. And it's like, this is why I continue to say that people have to be judged on the context of who they are as a human being, not off of like your stereotype of who they are because of the people around them. And that is, like, it's the idea that I would rather let 100 bad people go than one innocent person be put to death, right? It's like, you look at this and you can just walk in their shoes. I've been fucking dirt poor before, man. To walk in those people's shoes is to know what it's like to suffer. And to know what it's like to suffer like that, you can't help but to have empathy for people, regardless of whether or not some of them could be bad people.
And returned with proof of ownership. In 1950, only 156,000 Palestinians remained in Israel, and 46,000 of those were considered present absentees. But because Nazareth was majority Christian, and Israel didn't want to damage relations with Western nations, it was one of the few towns where inhabitants were not expelled. And today, Nazareth is known as the Arab capital of Israel.
Oh.
The second act takes place in 1970 when Elia is 10 years old. We're presented with what I guess I would call dark situational comedy.
Mm-hmm. That, like, the normalization, the polar opposites of the life that's being lived and the life that's being lived within the home is actually something that a lot of us see right now in our day-to-day lives. The understanding that America as a whole is kind of heading down this really dark path, But then when you sit down with your family and the people that you love, and you can sit there and just like have dinner and, have some sense of normalcy, it really is very strange. It's surreal. I experienced this when going to a friend of mine's house for a barbecue. And during that time, I was saying to myself, like, okay, tonight we're going to stay away from any topics. We're just going to have a good time. We're going to enjoy having our family because this is important. And when we did it, we went there and then we went home, it felt strange. It felt like, you're faking it. And I think a lot of people right now feel this. I think a lot of people feel like they're faking that everything is going to be okay, that reality is different than what it is. And it's leading to what I get, the feeling I get from this scene of the attempt at normalcy while you're well aware that everything that's going on around you is not normal, that this is how you stay sane.
Like if a sitcom took place in a ghetto. Their neighbor continuously douses himself in gasoline, only for Fouad to nonchalantly save him. Children are awarded a prize for singing nationalist songs in Hebrew. Elia is scolded for calling the US colonialist. Fouad is harassed while fishing at night with his friend. And all of this feels like the new normal. Variations of the same scenes repeat, and all of it is presented in the same ironic, meticulously crafted tone. The monotony only broken up when Fouad disobeys an order and puts his life on the line to save an Israeli soldier. The second act ends when Fouad is arrested.
That's great there, because that's humanism, right? That is showing that even when a person is resisting, even when they stand against everything to do with what a government is doing, that they can still be a human and they can still see the value in helping another person. And this is what I mean. This is why I think it's really important for people to not lose their humanity when talking about this conflict, to understand that there are lots of good Israeli Jewish people and there are lots of good Palestinian people that still exist in both of these countries, and that the worst thing that could possibly happen from all this, and I know this is going to sound stupid to some people, they're going to be like, that's not the worst thing, but to me it is the worst thing that can possibly happen, is that people lose their humanism and start hating and becoming what they've stood against this whole time, and that is becoming super anti-Semitic or becoming super anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian. The reminder that there are good people in all countries, regardless of what their governments have done, and that they deserve your respect and empathy as well.
In the middle of the night, after being suspected of smuggling weapons by sea, presumably because of his nighttime fishing. Ironically, the same man who almost died saving an Israeli soldier is then accused of conspiring to revolt. We're then dropped into 1980, and Elia is now a young man. We get the same dark sitcom vibes as the last act, but there's more political unrest now.
Get auto tech training at Universal Technical Institute and become career ready in less than a year.
Doing so well.
A few years earlier, in 1976, the Israeli government announced that they would be confiscating Palestinian-owned land in a project.
This is about the time that Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was involved, right? We know this from the video we watched the other day.
Called the Judaization of the Galilee. In response, Palestinians across the state organized demonstrations. Military and police killed 6 unarmed demonstrators, injured 100, and arrested hundreds more. March 30th, known as Land Day, is still commemorated by Palestinians to this day. We find out that Land Day is approaching, and that during the last Land Day, Elia was accused of tearing an Israeli flag and forced to leave the country.
Don't forget that this is based off a true story. Don't forget that, because that's fucking nuts. And that is what Trump wants to do to Americans, is that if you do anything to the American flag, you should be jailed, if not deported. That's fucking
And
nuts.
so his mom worries about what might happen to him this year. And sure enough, a policeman shows up to warn him that he's been denounced and needs to leave the country, despite the fact that the protests are happening outside and he's clearly not participating in them. We then get this slapstick scene of an injured protester being protected by hospital staff while soldiers try to arrest him.
Dude, how crazy is that? We just literally saw hospital staff that is now being put up on charges for protecting an immigrant from ICE agents. This was written in 2009. What is it? History doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. Isn't that a Mark Twain quote? Like, holy fuck.
Goes back and forth until finally a soldier aims a rifle, forcing the hospital staff to back down. Elia then picks up his father from the same hospital and drives to the pharmacy to get his prescription filled. Fouad, who has dealt with health issues ever since his beating in 1948, just recently had open heart surgery. He falls asleep in the car, and with Elia fleeing the country, it becomes clear that this is the last time he'll see his father alive. It's obvious that this film, The Time That Remains, is concerned with time, and limits to time, and the quality of the time that we do have.
Yeah.
This finality, this limit to the time that Elia has with his father, a limit that's imposed on him by the state, is the very thing that the film wants to resist. But when we're powerless to change those limits, when we're forced to accept that our time remaining is outside of our control, we stop trying to extend time horizontally. We stop trying to gain more time, and instead we extend time vertically. We slow it down and make the most of it. We make meaning out of the time that remains.
That's beautiful, to be honest. Because like I said earlier, I think that one of the main problems that we have is, the balance between adversity and security, right? Like we need this necessity of balance between security and adversity. When we have too much security, we grow soft and lax. Don't make any dick jokes, guys. And when we're experiencing too much adversity, we tend to become more irritable, aggressive, confrontational, and traumatized, like in abuse situations, right? And so I think that at times when you live in a place like I grew up in, you tend to make more of the time that you have with the people that you love because you understand the finality of life. Because, like I said, when I was 19, most people said, like, you'll be in prison by the time you're 19. Like, right? You'll be dead or in prison by the time you're 19. And that was like, those are the people being positive in my life. And I think that, like, you understand the finality. I think you understand that nothing lasts forever. And even though you don't have any hope of, like, succeeding and becoming anything important, it doesn't matter as much. What really matters is people. Like, what really matters is, like, being something that you can appreciate and that those that you love and that you're loyal to can appreciate as well. Whereas I think when you remove yourself from that situation, instead you have what we have in, the upper middle class and upwards, the wealthy and above, is that you have people that don't value time as much, that don't value their true connections and relationships with people as much, and that takes away the humanity that those people should have, that they don't have those experiences in their life anymore from adversity, and they tend to have instead too much security and find themselves in places where the time that they have is not valuable to them until it's the end, and then they want more of it because they don't want to let go. Whereas on the opposite side of that, when people have experienced massive amounts of adversity, you tend to, once you get to a point where it's the end of your time, you tend to go willingly because you don't want any more time, because the time you had wasn't what you wanted it to be. And so it's like, once again, I say, like, everything is balance. And so it's like somewhere in between that is where I think human beings are at their best. But that's really beautiful, the way that he put it. The way I put it was very iffy. I tried to follow that with my own, and I'm pretty sure I failed.
The final chapter of the film takes place in the present, and Elia is now played by himself, the director. As in all his films, his character, called ES in the credits, simply doesn't speak. He's a silent observer, a present absentee. He arrives from out of town, now middle-aged. His father has presumably passed away, as we had predicted.
Golf, enjoy that.
And in his place are two very lovely housekeepers who care for his diabetic mother. Instead of another land day, we get Israel's Independence Day. And instead of protests, we get fireworks. After seeing friends and spending some time at home, Elia takes a rather awkward cab ride to Ramallah in the West Bank. He can't help but to try to glance at the woman sitting next to him, but every glance is interrupted by the sudden appearance of a nude Marilyn Monroe hidden under the sun visor. The energy in this city feels different than Nazareth. Elia is woken up to violent protests outside his hotel window, only briefly interrupted by a woman pushing a stroller. And this act of defiance sets the tone for the end of the film. You get the feeling that she's not purposefully disrupting the conflict. She's just not letting the conflict disrupt her. We then get the most iconic scene of the film, and the one I opened this video with. It's another example of someone resisting this occupation by doing what they want, regardless of the gun pointed at their head. And it feels like a callback to Fouad's defiance in 1948. Instead of begging, instead of trying to extend his time horizontally, he extends it vertically. He passes over 6 through 9 and skips straight to 10. Because it's funny. Because it's poetic. Because no matter how small his window of time, he's going to do what he wants, not.
And he's irreverent, and he don't give a fuck
what he's told. And because this innate power that he possesses is so much more admirable than the abstract power of a state, the injustice of this oppression becomes crystal clear. It's the power of a state that allows weak and sadistic people to commit acts of evil. This is true of any and every state, no matter how well-intentioned. And perhaps it's for this reason that Elia has said,
"The fact is, I don't believe in states. I have absolutely also no identifications with statehood. I feel like what's really essential politically, morally and ethically is justice. And I always said that I will fight for Palestine for the Palestinian flag to be raised, but when it will be raised, I'm going to fight for it to be lowered down. Simply because my issue is not about borders. My issue is about people having simply equality, that they are living in a secular society, that they choose whatever they want to do in a democratic state of being."
These 100% grass-fed beef sticks from Elia Valley are 30 sticks for just $36 right now. But before you go and buy
I
them,
don't want any beef stick right now.
And in these small acts of defiance, even those who serve the state can be seen as humans. Humans who themselves are being used as tools by this abstract power. Because every single person, no matter who you are, faces limits. Whether it's the oppression of a state, or whether it's time itself. And Suleiman sees the oppression of Palestinians as a more extreme microcosm of a global state of things.
My feeling is we live in a global ghetto. And in a ghetto, usually we are reaching a certain despair. Mm-hmm. And in ghettos, when we reach that despair, we turn this despair into humor for the sake of resisting
1000%.
finality. We try to somehow expand the limits of time in order to survive the catastrophe, the apocalyptic moment that we are living. I think personally we are living this at this moment.
The film ends with Elia sitting just outside the hospital where his mother is being treated and where she's presumably going to die soon. He watches people as they enter and exit the hospital, and we're given little glimpses into their lives. Some of these glimpses are hilarious, some are sad, and some are fascinating. But I don't think there's any specific meaning we're supposed to take from it. I think it's just a microcosm of what the film is. one man's limited observations through his little window of time. Not at home, not belonging, just observing and making the most out of this in-between liminal state.
Yeah.
In my last...
Wow. That was really good. At the end of the day, you guys, I mean, we watched that documentary. The documentary, I'm going to go watch that documentary. But let's see what it's called one more time. The documentary is called The Time That Remains, and is by Elia Suleiman. And this video is from The Projectionist. So I think the video is both very well done. And also, I'm sure the documentary is amazing. So watch the documentary, subscribe to The Projectionist, hit the like and subscribe button, and thank you. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and check out that video on the screen now.